So now let's talk about the Mystic Book. I've talked about it a little bit during my presentations on Vancouver UFO. Whatever art you do, whatever you do, maybe you're a dancer, maybe you're a musician, maybe you're a painter, and imagine a scenario in which you get yourself into a state of consciousness. You're like a being state. You're like, okay, I remember that time I had that, euphoric meditation. Let's say it's that, and you get into this state, and you try to recreate that euphoria. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm compelled to, write out this song. And then you write it out and you're like, oh, wow. And then you come back to it every day and you get to that same state, and somehow it keeps needing to, it's almost like your subconscious is the one saying, okay, now turn and make it, go into D, and then now make it a B scale, and now F. And it creates its own intelligence, and you're not even conscious of it. You're like, it's the best way to frame it is that imagine Beethoven closing his eyes, writing out a symphony, and then all of a sudden when his eyes wake up, all the pieces, the horns and the violins and everything kind of aligns, and he wasn't even conscious of it. How could that even happen? That's what this is. It was basically, it came out on the spot as I read their book. And the details of how I did that again are in my book, and you can look into it if you want to. But so what I ended up doing was I was reading their stuff. I didn't even know I could do this. And it turns out in the contact events, I do have moments where I'm reading their language, and I'm reading it, and I can feel what it's saying. And then I write out my interpretation of what they were saying. That's what the Mystic Book is so I could feel their stuff. And then from my own Vedic and long-term history of being into spirituality, I kind of like knew how to like frame some of these ideas and talk about or frame them or express them in ways that were understandable. I always felt they wanted that. They wanted this kind of human version of their book. And that was kind of the whole point of the Mystic Book, was to make it something that's theirs, but translated into our understanding and frame of reference, knowing what I would have a Vedic guru and all that stuff. And so it all adds to the bigger picture of what the Mystic Book is. So now it's time to do a reading of the Mystic Book. This section of our message is addressed to the bodies who identify themselves as human beings. You think you are your body, but you are not. What you are is a perfect awareness, housed within and throughout physical tissue body. The mind, which is a part of your body, takes on the characteristics of your physical environment, the planet your body is from. Therefore, the mind will only take you so far in understanding universal truths. Yet, who you really are is a quantum dimensional consciousness, experienced as pure being and pure feeling. It is your super awareness, aware of your super identity, your true identity. And this true identity has a long history of many manifestations and forms you would call lives. Your true individual histories span other places, other galaxies, other times, and other dimensions. Your true identity, while simultaneously manifesting in space and time, also resides in a dimensional place beyond space and time. Now, your mind is not your brain, and your brain is not your mind. Your brain, though a tool for your use, creates chemical impulses, creating your experience of emotions, which become impressions into your mind. This mind could be considered your spiritual mind or ethereal mind. This very biological experience of brain can complicate, trick, fool, or confuse your experience of your true identity as awareness or spirit here on earth. In the brain is an organ known as the pineal gland. This pineal gland is a trigger point for awakening the dimensional spiritual component of your existence. When it is properly touched, it can become activated. This dimensional spiritual existence is hidden from you now because we, as in all beings in the universe, including yourself, grow the conscious universe by having you and all your other fellow humans forget. There are many places in this galaxy alone that are denser in reality, like your Earth. This density, darkness, or illusioned separation is like fertilizer for the living universe. Your identity as a quantum dimensional spiritual consciousness has its own ethereal body composed of light. This is what you are. Each individuation of the conscious universe has an ethereal body of some type. Each used the emanations from the world around it to create reality. The emanations of your world is dense matter, and this is what you use to create your reality. In your world, sometimes it is assumed your body is not part of your spirituality. We are here to tell you that it is imperative to keep your body healthy, as it is very much a part of your spiritual system. Be conscious of what you are eating and its effects on your body. Your food affects your disposition, your mind, your energy, and your magnetic field. Be in nature, as nature's negative ions are not just good for your body, but are needed for your body. Have plants in your care. Plants give and exchange healing energy and are good for your body. We cannot overemphasize how damaging stress is to your body. Learn to become aware of your subtle bodily sensations. Learn to feel where you hold stress and learn techniques to release it. Sit with a meditation practice. It is good for your internal and external energy cycles. Practices that focus on movement and flow, such as Tai Chi or movement meditation, strengthen your personal magnetic field. Attitudes of kindness and compassion expressed are great for the cells of your body. These are the ways to maintain the health of your body. We have created this body for you. Use it with good health. And I added some lines from the Guru to add to this. When you identify with a body, you become separate. Your body is not you. You currently inhabit it, and your cells have been infused with your consciousness, but it is being rented. We think we are body, mind, and intellect. Intellect comes from interledger, all the calculations, going around with what is possible and what is not. At the top of the head is a hole in the skull. That's where the energy comes out of. You can do it now in astral form. Okay, so I'm going to quickly talk about my own personal experience. All my experiences that I'll be referring to are in my book, The Rising, the Alien Plan to Build an Enlightened City on Planet Earth. And so I have 3 experiences that I can draw from. My first is the first contact event. It opens the book, and it's when I'm 16 years old. And so I'm in the White Room. Now, briefly going to point out here, I'm talking with Susie Hansen, who also herself was in a room very similar, white dimensionless room that gave you consciousness experiences. And this seems to be the same room that Linda Porter, who is in Linda Moulton Howe's book, was an alien contactee, and she talks about going into a white room space that they called a soul transfer room, and they did soul stuff there, the soul consciousness stuff there. And then Susie herself also has other people who've reached out to her saying, I've been in a similar space. I know this space also. So for me, this is a fact that the aliens have some kind of space with which they can pull your energy out of your body. And then they can, you can go into dimensional spaces in that room. It's like a room that provides dimensional experiences. And so in that room, when I'm 16, they either seem to phase or dissolve my body. I'm not even clear what happens to the body of me, but I end up outside of not just my body's gone, and I end up this kind of it's not even the ethereal me. I'll explain in a bit here, but there's kind of like, once you're outside your body, it's kind of like the ghost you, the ethereal you. But even then, they condensed that. Which I describe in my book as very similar to what I believe to be the experience of a Kundalini rising. So I was in this kind of state of bliss because they collapsed that energy down, and I was an orb just like they were. And then we were all in the room and we were flying around, and I had this, it was a very powerful experience. And then even from there, they gave me a afterlife experience where they showed me the death of my last life, then the overarching process in the middle of in the afterlife, if you will, and then down into the birth of this life. And there's a reason they show that. It's all part of the story, but the bottom line is that awareness was with me. So I can speak about things about the higher self, and it adds to this presentation, and we'll talk a bit about that. Then I had another out-of-body experiences. Again, I went back to the white room, and it was during my 19th contact event. And this time, instead of being a collapsed orb thing, I literally did see my body. I had been pulled out of my body, and I saw my body in some kind of casket thing. And I was like a ghost me, I guess, if you will, the ethereal me. And I kind of was just staring at myself and was in this kind of state because it was just a really calming and kind of subconscious state. And then, so that's my two kind of out-of-body experiences. And then the third thing is that I have this kind of excessive past life awareness. I'll do a proper presentation on my past life awareness one day, but not just yet. But the bottom line, it's in my book, and I've tried to delve into it as much as I can. That anyway, I'm aware that I've been living for thousands of years, and they've been able, and part of this I'm convinced is kind of having the alien contact that we've had contactees here on Vancouver UFO, and it's almost normal that people who've had alien contact end up with some kind of psychic superpower, if you will. And mine is odd. It's my past life awareness. I have this like exceptional awareness of several of my past lives, some of them in insane detail. And when I do a presentation, it should be obvious that I have something a bit unique going on there. I just don't want to talk about it when it's not properly ready to present on. But it is in my book in case you wanted to know. And anyway, so for all of this, it adds to, for me, an assurity that I know I continue to live on and that I've been living on. And yeah, so that's all part of my personal experience that I kind of add to this picture here. So now it's time to talk a little bit about what was said in that mystic book. So for humans, this is a very high spiritual concept. Humans are attached to the body. We live out our lives thinking about our bodies fully, and we identify as the body. So again, I read their content, as insane as that sounds. I did read it, and this was what I interpreted, and I kind of get to the minutia of how I experienced their content written. And they explain that we are a quantum dimensional consciousness. And so this is the breakdown of what I understood. So that there is there's a timelessness component to yourself, that the self has an actual no space, no time component, which they talked about in another part of the writing. And then the dimensional is that there are very like levels, degrees, intensities. So, you can experience another space. I guess that's what remote viewing would be, that, right? Or a psychic ability. You're aware of something occurring when you're not even physically there. But you can have levels and degrees of that awareness. So you can see it, right? You could see the other event occurring, that maybe someone's writing a text about you. Maybe you can even, observe it. And so there's degrees with which you pick up on that information. And then consciousness, the purest unconditional form. So just the raw awareness of who and what you are is the awareness you use to move your body and perceive the world around you. We always think, from my experience of the rising, I'm very aware, we always think we are the brain and that we have all the interactions, all the movements we do with our body are all aspects of the brain. But this right here is my consciousness. The eternal self is the one doing this action right now, not the brain. And yet it's using the brain like a tool, like you would be using driving a scavenger for a construction site, right? That kind of idea. Someone's driving the material and driving things, but it's actually the consciousness is the awareness. So the mind, which is a part of your body, takes on the characteristics of your physical environment, the planet your body is from. Therefore, the mind will only take you so far in understanding universal truths. So this awareness I gained from the White Room. So we have a higher self. This kind of the higher self that is not the core identity is not manifesting into physical bodies. It's like a core energy that remains actually detached, or not detached, but is separate in this kind of realm, if you will. And it produces the ethereal self. It's the one producing an offshoot of itself or creating a version of itself to manifest into a physical body. But we're always connected to this higher self in every way, shape, or form. And when we're actualizing our kind of quantum dimensional self, then we're bringing in aspects of that higher self into the physical body. And as far as I'm aware, this is what I understand the purpose of existence is, to bring that thing in as much as possible. And almost enjoying, as it said, fertilizer for the living universe, that the challenges of our life are actually strength building for kind of a game, if you will, for the higher self. But the whole point is to eventually get there and to master that process. So this comes from Vedic philosophy. In the Katha Upanishad, there's actually a description of the self, and this matches really well with things said in the Mystic Book. So the idea being is that the five horses are the senses. So you have the sight, smell, taste, hearing, and feeling. Then the mind, it all kind of goes into the brain, the physical brain, right? The physical tissue brain. And yet we have a mind as the kind of like processor who's there's a brain and then there's a mind, right? But regardless, it's all going into the brain and the mind is perceiving it as real. There's an intellect, which is the chooser. You have a physical body, and then you have the consciousness, which is the drive, the person who's being ridden around, who's being in the passenger, if you will. So I kind of break down the description here, the brain, which is, the senses going into the brain, the physical body. And then you have the ethereal body, as they kind of describe in the Mystic Book. So you have the mind, which is the ethereal body. So you have the physical brain, then you have the ethereal body, ethereal mind, sorry. Physical brain, ethereal mind. And then from there is the consciousness. You got the consciousness, which is the being state. They said pure state, a pure being state, and pure feeling is the way to identify, pure consciousness. Yet who you really are is a quantum dimensional consciousness experienced as pure being and pure feeling. So you can see that's your true self. You got the interpreter up here, interpreting, right? And it's going to receive thoughts, it's going to receive visions or thoughts or ideas, and they come from consciousness directly. And then the mind is the interpreter. The physical brain is technically the interpreter, and the mind kind of goes along with whatever. It's the intellect, right? The mind contains the intellect, and it's choosing what to follow. And so you have this interledger, the intellect, which is the interledger comes from my teacher, which I thought was really brilliant. And that's choosing between this and that. What are you choosing between? Between mind, intentions of the mind or intentions of consciousness. So the intellect is choosing between consciousness or the mind, ideas, or intentions, originating concepts, originating ideas about your life, your purpose, your vision, your values, everything you think about, everything originates either from your mind or from consciousness. You're doing one or the other. You're making a choice. And mind, again, is when it's the brain, right? That's what it's focusing on the brain and the senses, or it's focusing on consciousness. It's originating ideas from the brain, or it's originating ideas from consciousness. And when you consistently choose intentions and actions that reflect your consciousness, you condition the mind and the brain to listen to consciousness. So, I've had some people say they don't believe in enlightenment, and And having a guru, I would argue that that would mean, because I don't think you've met someone who's enlightened. And but I do believe very much that enlightenment is a reality, and it's the hard practice. It's the practice of consistently listening to consciousness. What ends up happening over time is you do condition the mind to properly listen to consciousness, and you will always be tricked. There's always, the brain is the one constantly thinking, no, 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 I don't. I heard from heart, I heard from consciousness, I'm good now. I found something, I can run with it myself now. And you always got the brain wanting to take over. And so it's the kind of constant game of consciousness to brain, consciousness to mind. And so the way that I find to help with that process, and they do mention in the Mystic Book, is a meditation practice. In minute 29 of When Will Humans Gain the Consciousness Abilities of Great Aliens Part 2 on my YouTube channel, it's this video here, minute 29, I break down a Vedic meditation practice for those who are looking for ways to subdue the mind, or to find a way to bypass the mind to experience pure consciousness. And I recommend, as a practitioner, that this is something that people do when you're trying to learn about who exactly you are, or who's the originator of your consciousness. Having a meditation practice that works to bypass the physical brain, so your mind can understand who and what you really are. This is the kind of, the gist of the meditation practice. It's but I won't delve into this here. All that detail is actually minute 29 of When Will Humans Gain the Consciousness Abilities of Great Aliens Part 2. We think we are our body, yet when we know we are not, we do lose the fear of death. So Eckhart Tolle actually had a really good line here that I really did like, as far as kind of embracing death and embracing fear. Fear seems to have many causes: fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of being hurt, and so on. But ultimately, all fear is the ego's fear of death, of annihilation. To the ego, death is always just around the corner. In this mind-identified state, fear of death affects every aspect of your life. I thought that was a really good line from Eckhart Tolle, that fear is this deep, deep, deep-seated thing that we have to kind of move through and get out of. So losing the fear of death. Lastly, being secure that we are our consciousness and not our body means we release ourselves of fear. All fear roots to the fear of death. And you do not die. You live forever. This body is only one of the many bodies you will put on and have put on. Okay, so time for a brief exercise. If I didn't analyze the Mystic Book enough, we'll do a Q&A and you can ask questions at that point too, and we can talk more. So the trick was for Jonathan to stop seeing himself trapped inside a limited body. The trick was to know his true nature lives everywhere, all at once, across space and time. Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Our bodies are tools with which creates cause and effect within space and time, but we are not them. Not identifying with our bodies is a helpful way to free our identity. If we come from the perspective that we are not our bodies, then we make space in our mind to try to understand the source of our consciousness. How much of your day-to-day choices are because you think you are your body? Think about what it means that you are not your body. Would you make different decisions regarding your job, marriage, hobbies, or lifestyle? So identification is a psychological process termed by Sigmund Freud, in which we assimilate the properties of something we identify with and make it a part of us. Let's say you buy a really nice hot rod car. Then you identify as that person, right? The person who buys a hot rod car. You say, oh, I'm a cool dude, right? Or I'm a cool person who owns this cool car. You've identified with the car. You've taken on as identification. This is what most of us have done with our relationship to the body. It therefore, right, we identify with the body. We say, we look in the mirror, I am that guy. That's me. We say that, right? Or I am that person. It therefore can be helpful to use conscious methods to remove our identification with our body. Typically, we might say, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm sore. See how you feel when you try using language that removes your identity with your body. My body is tired. My body is hungry. My body is sore. So grab a paper and pen, or if need be, you can use your smartphone. So either fill in the blanks for some physical discomfort you either have now or had in the last couple of hours. And take a minute to fill out the exercise below. Right? So in this case, right, I was tired. So in this case, it'd be I was. I was tired. Right? When I woke up, I was groggy. I was hungry when I didn't eat breakfast. And right now I'm sweating because I'm wearing a suit. Now remove the identification with your body. So my body is sweating. Right? My body was hungry. My body was groggy. My mind was groggy, I would say. So how do you feel after doing, so again, this will be on the YouTube channel. You can explore that more if you want to, pause and think and reflect in a greater way on the YouTube channel. So how do you feel after doing this little exercise? And then what insights occurred for you? And think about that. Think about, if there's any sensations or feelings you had. So try to think of a moment of physical discomfort you might have regularly. Hunger, cold, sleepiness, ache in the body. What would happen if you didn't identify as the body in that moment? So I just pulled an all-nighter last week. I volunteer and I pulled an all-nighter to volunteer. And I did it by saying, I am not the body. I am in the one, technically, I'm saying I'm in control. My consciousness, my heart, my consciousness is the one in control, not my body. And I said that as I was staying up all night. So all physical discomfort is an opportunity to practice detachment to the body. So we actually have an example of me doing this. By the way, me giving these examples, I'm not perfect. So, but I give these examples out as ways of, just, because I practice this. This is my practice, having a Vedic teacher and having the experiences that I have. I practice this stuff. I'm not perfect, but I practice it. And so I have a good example, though. Susie Hansen was on Vancouver UFO. We actually had her as a guest. And I broke my toe during that, during the talk. And that was really nuts. Basically, my toe was like that. And the other toe was like split or kind of bent over like that. So it happened like minutes before I was supposed to go on and let her and basically introduce Susie Hansen. And when I came on, my toe was broken over like that. And I'm like, hi, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. And today we got Susie Hansen. And you can go back and look at the video. My toe is broken. You don't know that, but I'm all like cheery and bubbly. And in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to feel like I'm not the body in that moment. I'm like, I need to focus on what's important, and I'll deal with this later, basically, is what I was saying to myself. And of course it started swelling during the presentation, and Mimi came and took over. And I will always be grateful, Mimi, that you were there that day, and the magic that happened between us to make that work was really awesome. And then when I was at the hospital and the doctor had to reset the foot, he froze my toe and he had to like reset it back. And I'm saying out loud in the ER room, I am not the body. I am not the body. I am not the body. And I had this like surge of consciousness, and I kind of felt really good as he's sitting there, wrestling with my toe. And so those are examples that I lived, try to, apply these ideas that I am not the body as a way of, exercising these things. And the point I need to make, here's the most important part of it all. Even though I've had out-of-body experience stuff, two of them on the alien craft, and I had the past life awareness and, and all this stuff that I can talk about and believe, my mind still exerts itself daily, right? There's the physical, it's the brain, it's the tissue brain, still says I am limited. The brain that I have, even though I condition things myself, it's still on a daily level is dealing with itself. So it will be terrified or will want to jump towards an idea that it's limited and it is the body. So don't touch me, don't hurt me, right? And so I'm practicing the control. So I'm the one taking over as consciousness and saying, no, I am not the body, and I'm conditioning my brain out of it. But if I don't do those practices, then all I'm doing is snapping back. I'll still live a life that I'm thinking I'm the body, even though I've had those physical experiences. So the point I'm always trying to make is that there's a need for an actual practice. There's a need for a consistent practice in spirituality to exercise what we do believe about ourselves, right? So as I say here, even though I've had out-of-body experiences, my mind still exerts its daily existence as the physical tissue object that believes it's mortal. This is why we need a daily practice to make ourselves secure in consciousness. So being secure in our consciousness means we defy physical ailments. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna calls Krishna Gudakesha, conqueror of sleep, right? He's able to overcome sleep because he's consciousness and not the body. And in my book, I give a whole space to my guru who, when you're with a guru, someone who does not live like they're the body, they live it. And my guru has crazy stories of not getting sleep and not eating and being the life of, he's giving a satsang and he's giving all this energy and everyone's passing out. And he's consistently like this, where he was the one with all the energy of the room, or he's out doing stuff, or he's defying physical ailments in his body in every way. I'd seen him out in the freezing cold and he's sitting there like not wearing a jacket, and he's totally all comfortable, and he's giving a talk, not even mentioning the cold. So he lives this kind of really hard life of not being the body, and kind of and lives that to the degree with which it's noticeable. Okay, so that was the exercise. Lastly, I want to give this. I thought it was really fascinating in the Mystic book. The aliens really wanted to emphasize the kind of the care of the physical body. And that I write here, if you keep your physical body healthy, you impact your mind's ability to rely on consciousness. And people are really, I notice just in general in our world, people don't put these things together often. And so I really emphasize, what you eat makes a difference on how you experience yourself. And so I give a recipe for dal here. I have had people living with me, and then I'm feeding them dal. They leave, go back, find a place for themselves, and they say, "Can I come over and have dal?" Because the nutrients it's so enriching for the body, and they can feel it. I've had one of my friends was a exercise trainer, and he was blown away with how light dal is, and yet how much protein and nutrients it gave him for how much his body, didn't need to spend all this energy digesting, right? So for those who are diehard about, finding new vegetarian recipes, I've given this one to many friends, and they are always blown away. So please take it upon yourself to explore dal here. So 2 cups of dal in a large pot, wash, then add 10 cups of water, bring to boil, then let simmer. Cook spices in a small pot. So this is the list of spices. You have to kind of do your shopping, and if you don't have this stuff already. But this, if you follow this, I've given this to friends, and they've fully been able to make this dish and make it effectively and love it. 1 to 2 tablespoons of ghee, 4 to 5 Thai green chilies, or 2 dried red chilies, 2 bay leaves, half a teaspoon of kalonji, half a teaspoon of fenugreek, full teaspoon of cumin, full teaspoon of fennel, full heaping teaspoon of mustard seed, full heaping teaspoon of coriander, let pop, full teaspoon of turmeric, full teaspoon of salt, steady sprinkle of acetata, cook with 5 large tomatoes for 5 minutes, then add to the dal, and then serve with basmati rice. So you can't go wrong with that. The other last little ingredient I'll give you to keep your body healthy, and trust me, you will notice these differences. Turmeric water. Have turmeric water every morning. You cannot go wrong. You will notice the difference in your body. And these little changes you make to your body lighten up your body, and they lighten up, and then you're able to, you can rely on consciousness in great, better and greater fashion when your body is lighter. And these things make your body lighter. All this, by the way, comes from my guru, my spiritual teacher, who has Vedic background, and so these are all kind of Vedic by nature, and they are effective. I totally have lived these, and everyone I've given these to, they get blown away by them. Okay, so thank you so much. That was the presentation. We are not the body. This is my YouTube channel. I do have a YouTube channel. Feel free to subscribe. This video will be on there. I also have a book, The Rising, the Alien Plan to Build an Enlightened City on Planet Earth. My email, if you want to get a hold of me, jeffselver@gmail.com. I also have a website with which keeps up to date with events and things that I'm doing and presentations I'm doing.